How's that? How's that? Nothing. You're not sure?
Can you hear through the speakers, though? Okay.
It's working? How about if I just freestyle it? Is that okay with everybody? Hello? So like this. That's not gonna happen. Oh. Now we're going. Everything's new, right? How's this? No. Just tell me if it's close enough. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm going to try and keep it PG-13. Okay. This is being live streamed. So Father heard you say why.
He'll understand.
You guys are way out here. I was driving, and I forgot. I was here about 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I think my oldest was 24. A lot's happened since then. So my name's Jim Richardson. I am married to Kathy. It's been 38 years plus maybe a year and a half of dating. And along the way, we created 7 monsters, which at some point we got twins as the last 2 identical boys. We're happy to have kids, but we didn't know we were having twins. Because after you have like 3 or 4 kids, you don't do ultrasounds anymore because you figure you got it all figured out. And then Bruce Cunningham said, well, Jim, Kathy's measuring a little large. And I go, you always say that, and it always just goes. So she went in, and then she was in this little closet-size ultrasound room in the basement, and the other 5 kids were lined up out there somewhere. And the ultrasound tech kind of calls everybody back, and Kathy's laying there, finds the heartbeat, goes, oh, there's your boy. And then she goes, and that's your other boy. And Kathy said, and I tend to talk a bit, I don't mind talking. She said, you didn't talk for 3 days. And Grandma and Grandpa were at the house, Kathy's parents. That's a whole nother family orchard of mental health. But Kathy had kind of talked to the kids on the way back as much as you can talk to kids 8 and under, and said, now, we're not sure we want to just say that we're having twins yet. So we spent, 10 or 15 minutes on the drive home going, okay, so everybody's got it? Yeah, got it. As soon as they walk in, Maddie's, we're having twins! So I'm going to talk tonight about mental health. I'm going to provide enough humor where it won't be painful, but I'll give you enough usable information where I think whether you're working with young kids, adolescents, young adults, or as you kind of look at your own role in your family, we'll have enough information about that. I think one of the goals is for you to know a little bit about my background, other than I was impulsive enough to have 7 kids. And I think with my background, you'll kind of get the hang of, oh, he's kind of seen and done and met a lot of different people under different conditions. Then I want to outline what mental health is. I don't want it to be kind of like a big, scary clinical talk. There's plenty of clinical information, but I tend to be educational and functional. And when clinical is needed, clinical's great. It's hard, but it's great. It's there. But for most of what we're going to talk about, it's going to be, how do I identify and work with just your day-to-day stressors in your families, particularly with kids? And what are some practical things that you can do? Probably some things you can't do. And then when is it time if I need like an outside resource? And that's particularly difficult. Making a decision, and I think I've learned this in the past 38 years of practice. I don't think I understood it in my 20s, because in your 20s you know everything. But as I've kind of had a family and worked with people, one of the hardest things people do is make a phone call and say, hey, I heard that, and could you see whether it's me, my spouse, my kid. 90% of it is a female calling. Men do not call. Boys don't call. Most referrals are generated from the female, the heart of the family. And I say, women are willing to actually think and feel on the way to the moon. They'll call when the problem's on the moon. Men, they call when it's over the moon. When it's already gone downstream, that's when I get the call from the guys. So when a guy calls, I already know. I go, oh, I already know where this is. This is over the moon, and he wants to back up to the moon, and he wants to get it ahead of the moon again. And usually, that's a pretty significant step for a male. When males come into counseling or for any kind of assessment, I call it accidental counseling. They're usually brought in with a spouse, a mom, a sister, a girlfriend, and most of the time they go, well, if you want me to, I'll go. And, a lot of times they're thinking, I do not, this isn't my jam. I don't want to go talk to somebody and be asked about my feelings. Most of the time when guys come in, I think they leave and go, well, it was for my wife. Yeah, it's been kind of good. But they don't go, it's been good for me. But they often will come back, sometimes individually, but a lot of times kind of with a female near them to process things. So that first call can be very difficult. Can I just say beep, Troy? When I beep? Troy? There it is. You can go past this. Oh, I'm going to have PowerPoints in the PowerPoint. That's a PowerPoint. The marriage relationship takes precedence over all other relationships, unless you want a divorce. I think in church, we go, well, my relationship with God. But I really mean this for men and women who decide to have a family. The marriage relationship anchors it. And your commitment and interactions there is the best prevention, the best salve, the best support for mental health. That is a fact. When men and women come together, it's not always happy, but if you remain respectful, if you remain willing to put each other first, and you don't get lost in all the other external stuff, that is a blessing to your kids. It's also, in the long run, a blessing to yourself. Not easy to do, but when you can do it. And I think a lot of guys feel like they have a lot of girls scratching at them sometimes for more attention, or could you get in here? Could you be helpful? And, there's some resistance to that. And I think when couples work that out and figure, what's that resistance about, it goes much better. So mutually supporting each other helps with consistency and clarity, and that helps kids. Beep. Oh. So, Kathy, kitty cat, the princess, she who must be obeyed. What could go wrong? In 1984, I was doing psych evals for the Division of Rehab Service. And I was seeing maybe 30 people a week. And you get to see people, all walks of life. Anything you can imagine, I got to see. It was part of my dad's business, and one of my older brothers and myself were working in the business. One of the contracts was to go out to Volunteers of America. It's a female prison. It's a lockup. So I drove over there, and on that day, I was supposed to do psych evals on prostitutes who were in the jail, and they were trying to figure out what else they might be able to do with work and schooling. When I walked in, you know, it's a pretty locked up, buttoned down facility. I'm in this kind of glass library area, kind of sequestered a bit, waiting for somebody. And across the way, there was this, well, I guess they thought it was an inmate. She was in a pink leotard, kind of sparkly. She looked like Olivia Newton-John, and she had the leggings on, and she was leading an aerobics class with the other inmates. And I thought, that's an attractive inmate. So afterwards, I realized, oh, she's walking me to the door. She's the program coordinator at the facility. At which point I thought, we should go on a date. I asked her out that day, and then the rest is history. So that's where we met, in the pathology of prison. And somewhere between being a prison guard, a warden, that's where the 7 kids come in. This is at, I'm going to get this right, Carly's wedding in September. So that's she who must be obeyed there. Beep. This is an old picture. This is at Kathy's grandparents, or Kathy's parents' house up at Burnt Shanty. And you'll see Erin is the tallest there. She was born, not raised. She was a perfect firstborn. Didn't have to tell her to stay on the line. She painted the line, stayed on it, and made sure her siblings were on the line too, which I don't think later on they liked that so much. So she's still a natural leader. David is the next tallest there with the goofy look. He is not like Aaron. He did not, he would hang on my leg, and I'd be leaving for work early. He'd literally be hanging on my leg. As you could see, we had a couple more girls in a row, so he was surrounded by girls, and he'd say, Dad, you don't understand. You can't leave me here with the girls. That's what he would say every morning. I can't hear society continue to say boys and girls are the same. They are so different at different ages, in good ways, in bad ways, in all ways, but they're not the same. He was like raising 5 kids for the first 4 or 5 years. Now he's like, hello, David, are you alive? I mean, he's calm and quiet. Carly, the one in the middle there, she's a brat, still a brat. That's it. She knows she is. She's having a baby coming in February. So a baby brat is what I'm assuming at this point. I tell her that. And then Molly, who's kind of peeking out over there on the right side, she's out in Aberdeen and headed to, I don't know where else. She's going to be a psychiatrist, apparently. So she's finishing her schooling there. And then Maddie, who's actually older than the twins, but you look at her and go, she's not. She's finishing grad school, her last year in psych. And then Jack and Sam, the identical twins, one's in New York and one's in Chicago, pretending to be in business and finance. None of my family is in business and finance, so it's comical. They're suffering. They're making a lot of money, but they don't like what they do. It's like, hey, you guys, we tried to tell you. It's no fun just making money. So that's the 7 wonders. Okay. Beep. Oh, yeah, this is important. Don't ever think your son or daughter didn't, couldn't, wouldn't, because when you think that way, it's more likely that they did or they're gonna. Never think one of your kids Didn't do it. Say maybe. Say you're not sure. The best mental health protection for parents. It will stop you from being shocked. It'll stop you from shaming your kid. How could you do that? It's like, well, didn't you listen to the psychologist? He's telling you, I could have. We made a critical mistake once, and that's it. Maddie, who's kind of a ding-dong going through school, she wrote more apology letters over her mishaps and was really good at writing them, so we bought into them every time. We go up to a school meeting in 7th grade. She's explaining why, the teacher's this and the teacher's that, and so Kathy and I are like, well, yeah, we really think you got to give Maddie a chance. The teacher in the middle of this, with Maddie there, pulls out a thing, goes, well, this is a note that your daughter forged to get out of class. And we said, we're done. Okay, thanks for the note. She did it. Beep. And they all did it. They've all done it. I used to worry about what was going to happen with their cell phones, right? Like, really, you wouldn't dare send my daughter that. Well, of course, you're not going to stop cell phones. But what are my kids doing? My mental health is protecting my kids, and I realize I got to protect society from my kids. They're not bad humans. So this is my overview of kind of mental health. It's essentially kind of our thoughts, our feelings, our behavior choices. How does it impact our world around us? How do we operate in our relationships? How do we communicate? How do we process when we're upset? What are our perceptions, reactions? How do we problem solve? Are we quick? Are we reactive? Are we slow? I got some slow ones. The IT engineer, do we got any IT engineers in here? What's the deal? Like, dot, slash, backspace. Like, it's got to be perfect. Really slow, accurate, but pick up the pace. And then mental health really is about our adaptability to change, how we resolve conflicts, how do we deal with our stressors. When we're in the middle of kids, I think of the amount of pressure and time and energy because we want so much for them. And I think more than ever, the idea of performing in school, performing in sports is really kind of a atmospheric pressure on kids. I think sometimes we don't take a step back from that. We almost want too much for our kids. And I think Kathy and I would say that, the first two were kind of experiments. Let's just say that. We didn't know for sure what we were doing. And so we kind of just try to force them to the line. I think as we went further and further with kids, taking a little bit of a step back is helpful sometimes. We get pretty passionate, pretty intense. I'm sure there's a few males in here that have some micropsychotic moments, I call them, where your kid's just burning a hole, you're just upset in a moment. Moms, I think in general, try and be patient, lose it. Where dads sometimes go, let's just get to lose it. We're just going to get right to the problem here. It all balances out eventually. About the time, I would feel like Kathy might be like, well, I don't know, with the girls, your tone is a little, I feel. It's like about a week from that time, I always figure out, you know what, you should be getting in there and giving her some more tone. And I think like the same thing, like she'd go, wow, you're frustrated about this or that. I go, yeah, well, you're always about 2 weeks behind me. Then you want to choke the kid at some point, And so I think for parents to kind of work together and balance each other out is important. So that's general overview of mental health. Beep. Here's the common things. These are the things I get called about. People are wondering. People go, well, I think my son or my daughter, my husband, my wife has anxiety. And I go, we're human. Like, is there somebody in here don't raise your hand because it's a trick question. I mean, that really believes you do not have anxiety. We all have anxiety. How it affects us, what we do with it. Are we Chicken Little, running around, the sky's falling? Do we get quiet with it? Do we get frustrated? Do we go inside? Do we go outside with it? Do we get reactive? Do we get talky? We all have anxiety. Number one referral, I think, really for kids. And it's not that anxiety isn't real. It's what's the anxiety doing and how are we coping with it? And I think you can raise your hand to this. Does anybody here have kids with anxiety that you kind of go, my kid's anxious? Yes? No hands? Father, make them raise their hands. Anybody have kids with anxiety? Oh, this is better. Okay. I think anxiety is like wiping a booger on your parent. It's like, there it is. Here's my anxiety. And they wipe it on you. And then it's stuck on you. And if you're a mom, it's over. Because you worry about the worry. You'll be worried all day long. And then they'll be in school and you'll think, oh, I bet they're worrying. They have no worries in school since they're away from you. And then they come home and lie to you. Oh, I was worried all day. And the teacher goes, they weren't worried all day. They were playing, they're doing everything. They get home, they get panicked. They start talking to you. It's like, what are we going to do? And they worry about anything. I worry that I might float up and there's no gravity. I worry that I'm going to choke. I worry that I'm not going to wake up. I worry I can't get enough sleep. I worry I didn't eat enough. I worry I ate too much. I worry. And then there are those kids that you can't get them to worry. That's a whole nother kid. Like, why is it always me worrying and you're not worrying with me? Depression, just sadness, low energy, something's wrong. My kid looks sad. I'll talk about when you know this is a problem. This happens with adolescents, happens with adults, moms and dads. A woman came in and she had her daughter with her. And her daughter had problems, to be sure. She had been in like an intensive outpatient. She's 14. And it's kind of a can of silly string lit on fire. It just feels that way. But in the meeting with the mom, and I had met the mom one other time, she's talking about 50 words a second. And, I asked the daughter a question, and I don't know if there's a ventriloquist in the room, but the mom is over here, and I just look, and I said, hang on. And I go, and she starts going again, and I go, oh, you have a lot of anxiety. The girl had some depression, she had some other things, but there's kind of a shared storm system in the room, right? Mood disorders are the situations where you might lose it with anger, you might lose it with tears, you might be panicked with anxiety. Your moods literally aren't just one or the other, it's zipping up and down. The most dramatic mood presentation that we find is like bipolar disorder, what they call manic depression years ago. That's a different kind of deal when you get into that clinical space. It's not a choice. It's not, well, what happened that you have this? It's more like diabetes or something like that. Like when it visits, you have it. So many people are like, what did I do wrong? Or, what is this? And when a mood disorder is legitimate, it's something that you need to kind of treat. And it doesn't respond just to a conversation or normal interventions. So, ADHD and learning disorders. Right now in the world, pretty much ADHD and autism. I'm pretty sure everybody in this audience has autism from what I can tell in the mental health community. We're diagnosing it everywhere. You can't just be odd anymore. Just a nice odd person, somebody who's a little weird or strange. Everybody's got to have a clinical diagnosis. That's a really hot topic right now. Chemical use, huge issue right now. You guys don't have to raise your hands if you're using chemicals. What I want to let you know is what used to be just trying pot, trying marijuana, it's not that anymore. It's way stronger. There's more delivery systems. Our government seems to be backing it. They legalize it, and then they give money to treatment programs for it. I'm very confused, as is some of our kids, I'm sure. The most common thing that I see is adolescents into young adults who are lost in vaping THC, smoking weed that's way stronger than when Simon and Garfunkel were playing songs when I was growing up. And they think it's okay. It's all they know. They know weed 30 times stronger than anything that's ever been on the market before. And so they go, this is fine. A certain percentage of those kids lose their mind. They start to become non-functioning. They get kind of a soft thought disorder. They're apathetic, and they just fail to launch. They can't go on and finish anything. They're not motivated to do anything, and they're not bothered by it. But guess who's bothered by it? Their parents. Parents' anxiety is through the roof. They're trying to get the kid to do something, and it gets to be really complex. So when you hear marijuana, somebody's smoking weed, you can get away with it, but it's way different, and I think it's something to really pay attention to. And I wish we did a better job with kids early, saying, it's not what you think. And when it becomes a problem, you won't think it's a problem. So sexuality is probably another really big topic. Being Catholic with 7 kids, obviously we had sex 6 times. Actually, I thought she said, did you want to have 6? Sex. She asked, did you want to have sex? She was asking, did I want to have 6 kids? I thought sex. And then we got 7. So it was a bad hearing thing. It's hard, I think, at times right now with the sexuality issue of kind of getting a handle on what's real, what's imagined. We've spiked up to the point where 20 to 30% of adolescents are saying, I'm not sure about what my sexuality is, if I'm tri, bi, poly. There's confusion out there. It's not statistically possible to move a population objectively from 3% or 5% to 20 to 30% this fast. So sexuality issues have kind of merged with technology, media, and all sorts of other things. And it's happening at a time when kids that are 10, 11, all the way up to about 17, that is the most vulnerable time to be fed considerations about who you are and your identity. And as kids hit that 11, 12, 13, they're looking outside the home, hoping to attach to something that gives them a feeling, and sometimes just being out of the family and not doing just the family thing is enough. And there's such attention and connection. And then, you have your cell phone, and you get to just say boom, 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 and I can look and see and think about whatever I want. I can be in a group chat. I can be talking to somebody I don't know. I could be gaming. It's a real different world to kind of grow up in. I think that we have some work to do, generally speaking, within the Catholic faith, and then just as parents of staying connected and open and keeping a conversation that allows kids back into a conversation where they don't feel shamed. They feel like, yeah, I can talk about this. This is open. I have a story later that I'll share. Beep. Oh, well, this would be good. You see the last part, until kids can support themselves. I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. Do you have a phone? Yeah. No, you don't. It's theirs. Do you have insurance?
Theirs.
House?
Theirs.
Car?
Kind of.
That's actually yours.
Car insurance?
The loans are.
Car insurance? Did they sign on the loan?
Yeah.
It's yours. Yep. It's hard. It's hard for my kids too. I think that's a simple thing. I say it funny. I'd like it to be more true than not. But I'm not a dictator. My kids get to vote. They get to have influence. They get to manipulate us and sometimes trick us, and we give in. Or how about this? We recognize we made a mistake as a parent. Wouldn't that be nice to have your parents say they made a mistake? Is there anything bugging you that they've done? We can get it done tonight. What do you need? More computer time? Yes? What game?
I don't know.
No, which game do you like?
A lot. It varies.
Tell me the best one now, currently.
Rocket League.
Rocket League, if I can get an extra hour a week. All right. Clean that room. Make sure the toilet is clean. That's on you.
Sounds familiar.
And then come and negotiate, right? And then check this sink. I don't know what happens with kids. They lose all muscle control. And then they want to be on the computer. But I'm all for kids having computer time as long as their basic stuff is done. And parents go, my kids would go, hey, Mom, can I? And she goes, if you finish the question and this isn't done, the answer is no. They'd stop mid-question. Hey, and they go, I got to go check my room. I got to do the homework. So we'd say yes, but make sure that other stuff's done. Do you have a sister? Yeah, I'm sorry about that. She's perfect. Next, support themselves over there. All right, what is normal is getting super hard to tell. I can get you diagnosed with anything. I can get you medications today. I can get you a virtual appointment. I can get you pain meds, anxiety meds. I can get you Xanax. I can get you what you want. I can get you the diagnosis. I can get somebody to say, you're having a big problem. I can't get certain people to say looting's a problem. I can't get some obvious things to be recognized. So I can get, on a micro level, whatever you want. On a macro level, nothing's a problem. And so we're really confusing people right now. It's a really, really tough thing when you look at cultural norms. Where did you come from? What is the society telling you? You're in Minnesota. Do you think that's like California or New York? My son would definitely say, hey, Dad, this isn't like Minnesota out here. Like, I leave and I just feel tense. I feel it at the station when I'm going to get on the subway. Like, there's just an energy out here that's different. And if you go out to Montana, that's different. Our cultural norms help define what's normal. When you go down into community norms, and because you guys live out here a ways, it was a long way out here. And it's not Woodbury out here. I told my wife, I said, we have left normal. This is not normal. My kids went to a school where, honest to God, does everybody drive a BMW and a Lexus? And their tires and wheels are more expensive than my car payment. I'm like, what is going on out here? And my kids expected, and they'd be driving up to school in a beater, which I thought was great, which it was because they cracked it up. I'm sure the guys in the BMWs, the kid comes home with a dent, and that kid's hearing it. I'm just like expecting it, so we don't even get mad. So your community norms are different. What's a problem? What do I dress like? What's my attitude like? You go into a private school, private Catholic school, and then go into a public school in a different area and then watch the kids, watch the teachers, watch the interaction. It is not the same. I'm not saying one's better or worse. I'm saying don't pretend it's not different. The expectations. What you can yell in a hall becomes normal. What you do in the lunchroom that's influencing your kid, or your kid's influencing somebody else, as we found out with Bratty Carly. And then what's our family norms and expectations? Where did you come from? We're going to talk about the orchard in a minute here. And then our individual, like kid to kid. We have 7 kids. I have identical twins. They are not identical. They're weirdos. Like, I swear to you, one like writes in like the smallest, most perfect thing. He's the lawyer. so you probably can't read the fine print or whatever he's doing there for bucks. And the other's kind of expansive and quick to react, and you'd go, are you guys identical? And they look identical. They're gorgeous. They're like 6'4". I tell people they're adopted. There's no chance they came from me. And then what's the system, resource, and the tolerance? Depending on where you are, what's available to you for help? That sometimes defines if we're going to say that there's a problem. And if I have a lot of money, I can wait a really long time to identify a problem. I can block it with money. I can go, don't worry about it. And that's a real challenge in some of the places that I work. Money comes to meetings, and the money doesn't want to listen. The money doesn't have to. Everything looks good, everything's fine, but it's not fine. So sometimes our system resource kind of starts to define what's a problem. Beep. My beep's getting better. You guys know Uncle Mike? I know. It was a trick question. Thank you for answering. My mom, yeah, I was just thinking our orchard with our 7 dysfunctional wonders. But then over time, it's like, well, where did Kathy and I come from? I have 5 brothers and a sister who's hard on all of us boys. She was hard on us boys. She took it to us. Like, I had one brother, he's kind of uppity, sassy. He was all about it. City would dress him down and just shut it down. It's the only person I've ever seen like, I'm not talking to her. He's afraid of her. He should be. She's accurate, and she makes no apology for it. She's not going to take any lip from him. So I come from 6 boys and a girl. And you couldn't leave our room in our house without getting smacked by your brother. So you just kind of learn to kind of have a twitch or something. Kathy grew up with 3 girls and then a trailing boy that was like 7 years younger. Bob and Pat, 7 years later, created the second coming. Simba, Jesus, whatever you want to call him, he was the golden boy. Kathy's dad, probably because he had 3 daughters, but probably because he's from the range, probably because they're from Poland, like, and he never raised his voice. I've known the man. He's never raised his voice. And I married his daughter. We never didn't raise our voice at our house. We had 6 boys, and the dad's like, knock it off. And my dad was right, because we were doing something. We were monkeying around. But to merge those 2 systems, and then, here's a daughter, here's a son, I can kind of relate to you, girl, girl, girl. I'm like, what do I do? I can't parent her like a boy in the next one. And so it kind of restructured how we blended our families together. So we had to kind of look at some of that. And then Uncle Mike is 83. He's one of 11 children. 11 children, right? I found out this year, because they take him out to breakfast, because they have to find out about the family orchard, right? This year I find out that his dad, my grandpa, and my grandma were illegal immigrants from Canada over from Germany and came down in. And I'm like, well, hold on. You're saying I'm an illegal immigrant. He goes, well, no, but you're from illegal immigrants. I'm like, this is really challenging me right now. And then he starts to tell me stories about growing up in a 1-bedroom house, 1419 case, 11 kids, 1 bedroom. Where did you sleep? I don't want to know. Humble. They don't ask much. They're grateful for anything they have. You get a job, you hold it till the end of life. And then Grandpa Bruner, which I think I met him maybe one time at the funeral, he drank it all. He drank it all. He worked and then he drank to survive, I think, 11 kids in the house. Then his wife died. His wife died. He's got all these kids. What are you going to do? That's part of where I came from. Kathy's side of the family orchard. Grandma, Kathy's grandma, was sent here at age 15 from Poland. She did not speak English. She was one of 3 kids. They put her on a boat and said, good luck. But that was love. That was them sending her into hope. And it explains why I have like a bomb shelter in my basement with canned food. Like, what are we getting ready for? Well, that's what you did. You saved everything, even though we don't need it. That stuff comes forward in families. So what's in your orchard? Do you guys know? Do you guys even talk about that? Or we got married and then we realized, oh, we have some differences here. The genetics, the learning from past generations comes forward. How did mental health get treated? You didn't treat mental health, not 75 years ago. Mental health, like get over it, get to work. Stop your complaining. Now we have more access to resources. Beep. Oh, true statement. Your most difficult child will bring you your most pleasant surprises. It is true. That little bratty Carly, because she went on to work in pediatric bone marrow transplant with the sickest kids in the world, with the most kind, compassionate heart you can imagine. Bratty, Kathy, Bratty Carly. And then your most prized possession will bring you your most surprising disappointments. They will do something that will go, hold it, I was expecting your sibling to do that, but you did it. And that happens. And everybody has a sister or a brother in their own families. Maybe you were that person. It's part of our family history. Pay attention to that. Don't get caught gloating over one and dreading the other. Love them all the same. Beep. You really need the beep, don't you? A little inattentive. This is how we know a concern becomes a problem. Could be anxiety, could be depression, could be attentional problems, could be chemical use, could be anger management, could be alcohol. Whatever it is, what's the frequency? How often is this happening? How intense is it? You know, sometimes people have an explosive personality. It doesn't happen that often, but when it blows good. It's too big. And then somebody gets hurt emotionally, physically. Chronicity, over what length of time is the problem occurring? It's okay if you're worried about your kid's anxiety. Has it been more than 2 weeks? Is it part of their personality? Is it increasing? Is there a time the anxiety goes away? Whatever the characteristic you're worried about, and then it's serving a purpose, right? And then what's the impact to self? What's the anxiety, the inattention, the anger, the drinking, the depression? What is it doing to the person you love? Could be a kid that you're teaching in school. Could be a neighbor. What is it doing? What are you noticing? You know, and a lot of times you'll see performance issues. You'll see a change. And then what's the impact to others? I mentioned anxiety is like wiping a booger. I should say it's like wiping 10 boogers. Because it really gets all over the family. Anxiety begets anxiety, and it's hard to stay calm. And then we feed the worry. And so the whole family system starts revolving around anxiety. Well, you have to read me another story. You have to rub my back. You have to double check what's in the closet. You know, pretty soon it's like, well, I started going to bed at 6:30, 7 o'clock. I fell asleep halfway through. You know, they're poking me. Wake up, I'm still anxious. And pretty soon it's 10 o'clock, you're like, oh my goodness. The impact is a lot. And then say you have a depressed kid, an anxious kid, whatever that situation might be, a kid that's using. What's the impact to the siblings? Where's the attention going? What's becoming the center of the family? And we have to really pay attention to that, because we want everybody to get cared for and get well, but you don't want to like create it and put it in the center of the family on a chronic level. That's not healthy. Best thing is this: real problems don't stop. If you think your kid has a reading problem, get tutoring, do whatever you're going to do. If it's a real reading problem, it's going to stay a real reading problem. Even with extra help, people with dyslexia and reading disorders have gaps. You'll find them forever. Even if you teach them, even if you give them extra help, if it's an actual legitimate learning disorder, you'll find it. It'll keep going. If it's really an anxiety disorder that's going to become impactful, you're worried about it, well, just watch it, because it'll take up more space. If you think it's a chemical use problem, it won't stop. It'll just keep surfacing. If you think your kid's addicted to, what was the game? Rocket League? That's a fun deal. Do you go to Roblox for that? Yeah, see, he loves Roblox. But so if you think your kid has an addiction to something like that, watch it. It won't go away. The gap will get bigger. The problem will stay there. Beep. Here's some common signs of a problem. You're going to see a change in attitude, change in mood, change in behavior. You're going to see that their interests or activities. So when do I think a kid has a problem with gaming? First thing on their mind when they wake up, it's all they want to get to. They'll do whatever you want, but they are magnetically drawn back to it, want more of it. Last thing they think about when they go to bed at night. And then, they're jumping on the computer and they're breaking rules. That's a problem. Watch the change in interest in activities. If it starts to shrink or change a lot, you got to look at that, particularly if it goes on for a while. If you see downward performance, school, sports, socially, what's going on? My kid used to be kind of interactive. Now they're not. What's going on with me? I used to be vibrant. I used to want to do things. Now I don't want to get out of, I am kind of bunkered in here. Am I depressed? Am I anxious? What's going on with me? Is my wife or husband concerned about me? Those are cues. So with kids, if a teacher mentions something, try not to get defensive, okay? I think it's hard to be a teacher. Generally speaking, they don't want to single your kid out. Most of the time, teachers are pretty good because they've seen a lot of kids. And so they're trying to figure your kid out, and they want your kid to do well. So if they bring something up, receive that and say thanks, and then how can we check into it? If friends mention something to you, this is a true story. I still see this guy now. Now is okay. 15 years ago, 20 years ago wasn't okay. We're close. We're raising kids together. Of course, we got way more kids. But our first two kids are about the same age. And we said, hey, I work in the schools, I work in the community. If there's something that ever goes on, or you're worried about, or you hear something about our kid, tell me. And he said, yes. And you tell me. Well, something came up, and I said, hey, remember when we talked, and you said, yeah, tell me? He goes, yeah. I said, I'm telling you, just take a look. And that's all I said. And he knew what that meant. Take a look. What's this teenage boy doing? Give me some ideas. What do you think his teenage boy was doing? His mom answered.
No, I'm not mom.
So,
Skipping class.
no. I think parties.
Parties. Drinking.
Keep going.
Girls.
Well, boy, give me one more.
Sex.
Weed. He was smoking. For sure he was smoking and doing more than smoking. We did not really have a relationship with him for probably 7, 8 years till school's over, college is over. Never talked about it again. You have to be careful. People say, hey, I want to just let you know, give you a friendly heads up. Some people want to hear that. Some people do not want to hear that. They view it as judgment. I wasn't thinking judgmentally. I work with people all the time. I'm just thinking, if that's my son or daughter, thanks for giving me a heads up so we can at least check into it. Okay. Combative attitude, erratic behavior. If your kid starts to isolate, if your loved one starts to isolate, and that's different, don't let them bunker in. You got to get in there. You got to care. You can't parallel their behavior. It'll just get worse. If isolation is there, it's a call for tapping on the shell, for getting under it, for asking about it. It's okay, and they won't like it. They'll tell you you're crazy. I'm not crazy. I love you. I want to know what's going on here. And that's hard to do. And I think make sure as parents, we're approaching our kid together. It can't be, well, your dad or your mom, I just had to say. It has to be we. We together have a legitimate concern as parents. And then excuses that make no sense. If it gets too complicated in the conversation and you're just asking questions about schoolwork, parties, and it's like every time he talked for 10 minutes and I still didn't know what he really said to me, you're being let out from the problem. And so pay attention to that. That's evidence. It never hurts to check in and get an opinion. You can always do that. You have other resources. You have friends. Everybody here can get to a psychologist or somebody and go, hey, this is going on. What do you think? Am I overreacting? Beep. Little kids, little problems. Everybody gets super big worries over little kids, but little kids, little problems. By middle school, kids start to look outward for identity. They like to be creeping on the internet. They like to figure out what cool in school is. They're in group chats. They're really susceptible to influence from exposure to things. It's a time to stay close, not to helicopter, but know what your kid is doing. I hope you know the passcode to your phone, because it's not your kid's phone. You got to know the password. If you don't check your kid's phone periodically, you're just doing an assist to problems. It's your job. Yep, and it's their job to make you feel like you're the worst human on earth for ever checking anything. It's their job. They're supposed to be defensive and make you feel like you're Adolf Hitler. It's okay. It's your job. And then high school, about the time you get wheels, you want to be more bold. You want to go out there. There's more opportunity to be free, to be deceptive. This is a time where kids are going to explore and do things. And as I said earlier, don't ever assume that your kid isn't the one who would. I've had moments, Kathy's had moments with all of our kids. It's like, come here for a minute. Give me your phone. And then you can just see it gulp, going, do you want mom to look at this or me? Well, probably you, Dad. It's probably not. Mom doesn't need to see this. Mom will hear about it. So when you get in those situations where you're checking a phone, please, men, check the phone. Please help your wives out. Please help mothers stay innocent. Please help your child avoid catastrophic shame. Have dads check the phone as much as possible. And dads, don't linger on the phone you're checking. It's going to get you in trouble. All right. Beep. Here's how you be supportive. I asked some of my kids, I said, I'm talking to parents tonight about mental health. And they're old enough where they'll kind of tell the truth about life and what was important to them. I also have a couple of son-in-laws. It's hard for me to even say that. It's like, oh, you're my son-in-law. You're sleeping with my daughter. Ugh, this isn't okay. but they're generally pretty nice guys. And what they identified pretty consistently was having that ritual of communication. For us, the rituals were being at the table, having dinner. And, you know, if you're the parent who's cooking, which is about 98% women, I would say this. The process of cooking is thankless. You spend more time cooking, and then it's about 7 minutes of slop and chaos, and somebody's crying, somebody looked at somebody. I mean, it's just like, why did I even have kids? But that chaos, that time, is what they remember. And during that time, hey, everybody gets to say what's the best part of their day, what's the worst part of their day, and is there anything you're struggling with? That was that. The other ritual of routine was nighttime prayer. I don't think I'm like the holiest Catholic person around. I really do not. Can you tell this? I'm more of a hockey player, I think. I was mischievous for sure. I didn't pay attention in school that well. But one thing that my wife brought to life was structure, routine, and kind of like, I don't know, we need to lead this flock a little bit. And so every night we would go up and we would pick which room, but we would all gather in the room and we'd say prayers. And then we'd ask, like, do you have something that you want prayed for? And they might pray for a classmate. They might pray for their ugly sister because she's stupid. Whatever it is they're going to pray for, but they got to say that. But they'd also hear, like if they had something they're struggling with, their family heard it and prayed for it. We watched over each other. That seems kind of like Disney. It was really something they all referred to. The final thing they referred to about a ritual of communication, and it's nothing Kathy and I would have expected. Dan and Brett, the two guys that are sleeping with my daughters, they're married, so it's okay. I'm getting over it. At first in life, it's like you don't want anybody to touch your daughter. Then they hit an age like, get in here. Somebody date my daughter. So I've gotten over that. But, like, these guys said the routine of a coffee ride. And they're like, what is that? Well, about 25 years ago, surviving the chaos and trying to get my wife's head out of the jet engines that were going on in motherhood, we would go out on a coffee ride. We'd go get a Starbucks. We'd even strap some of the little monsters in the back of the van, and that would just be like a time where, you know what, you don't got to be cleaning anything. You know, we can give them, they can have videos, have popsicles, what do you want? Everybody be quiet. We're gonna just be up here. That continued. We still have a coffee ride every morning by 6:30, unless she works at Starbucks 20 hours a week to get our benefits. I'll go in there at 6:30 and have a coffee. She gets a break. And the kids said that ritual, they felt like that connected. And so they wanted to continue that with their spouses because it was a time where they saw people communicating and liking each other. It's not true. Kathy and I don't always like each other on the coffee rides. It can get kind of tense sometimes. They don't know that. So, a ritual of communication and connection. Does anybody here have one of those going that they would share? Anybody? None? We have no connections. What do we do? How do we connect? Anybody?
Wednesday night supper.
Here?
Twice, but usually
Yeah.
almost every week, Mike and I and a third friend almost always have supper.
We go connect. Anyone else?
So we're shifting, because we have adult kids now, but we really like dinner in our house when the kids were in high school, and now we're trying to find a new way. And so dinner Sundays is, it's not every Sunday, but it's a lot of Sundays, but they come around, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
it's
they love to
raising
eat.
adult kids is a different stage.
They love to eat.
They do love to.
They'd
eat.
really like it if you went and spent like $150 at somewhere.
Yes.
Our kids love that. Oh,
They
yeah.
like to come to our
Yeah,
house.
everybody's got alligator arms. Everybody makes more than dad and mom, but they can't quite get the bill ever. So I would say having those routines, super important. Setting up a time and a place for that. And then, how do you ask for help in your family? You did not ask for help in my family growing up with my brothers. Be like, yeah, I'll give you help. I'll give you another noogie. You know, it just, my dad's a psychologist. We wouldn't ask for help. It'd be like, oh no, that could be kind of scary depending on what we've done that week. How have you made it okay to ask for help? Well, you do that sometimes by sharing problems or stresses you're having, not concealing them, going, you know, at night or whenever we're communicating, yeah, how am I doing? I'm kind of irritable. You know what? I'm kind of sad right now. It's okay to talk about our emotions a bit. I think that's a good thing to do. And then, how do you demonstrate apologizing and forgiveness? This is the worst characteristic of families I meet in counseling. There is always one person, and I don't know that the person always wants to be right. They just don't want to be wrong. It's like, well, you know, it wasn't at 8:15. It was, you know, so you're wrong about that. So I'm not wrong. And they just dig in. And it's just like, I'm over here sweating inside, watching this, going, wouldn't it be easier to go, I'm sorry? Well, apparently not. And then teaching people to say they're sorry. You think adults would be able to do it? I'm sorry. It's like, you're in counseling. You're paying $200 an hour to go, I'm sorry. Like, what? So please, and say you're sorry to your kids. We didn't know it was going to be this hard being a parent. We're so grumpy sometimes. We're so stressed, aren't we? You know that. It's okay to regret parenting. It's okay. Tell her it's okay. It's okay. Don't let him near you again. Just keep that. I'm telling you that. So apologies and forgiveness are the heart of it. And then how about if we can talk about the orchard? My kids know. Hey, guess what? Some of your aunts or uncles, no, not aunts, she never did anything wrong. They like to drink. You know, we got the drink. Well, yeah, the drink drinks them. They're got the drink. So when you go out as an adult and go, I'm having a beer or having a drink, remember the orchard, because we got that in the orchard. We got some things there. Does anybody here have any family members with mental health problems? Anybody? Don't point if they're here.
Late in life, we're realizing that probably, now I can't think of what it's called. What is it when you can't talk to my brother is an attorney,
Yeah.
but he can't have a conversation.
Like he has social anxiety or just gets, yeah.
And we can trace it to my mother's mother and his brother.
Yeah. Sometimes we like to know where it comes from. Sometimes I don't, because Uncle Mike, I almost don't want to go to breakfast with him anymore. He just keeps telling me horrible stuff. And then, would you ever ask somebody, would you like to talk to somebody? Would you like to go talk to somebody? That demonstrates an openness about mental health. Beep. Here are your resources. We got resources everywhere. They're not all good. Somebody read the top resource. Please read it out loud. Parents are the best resource. I'm fine. I think I'm good at what I do. I could help you be better as a parent or your kid's struggling with some. You're the best resource. How you do it around the house every day. How you open things up for them. How you're vulnerable. How you say you're sorry. It's like, yeah, well, you know, your assignment was late, but you did see like I had an emotional aneurysm and was screaming at you. That was too much. I'm sorry about that. The problem was a size 4. I gave you a size 9. If you don't take care of that, your kid's walking around with a size 9 shame. Like, God, I'm a horrible person. I thought it was just an assignment. I think my dad's going to have a stroke. Not a good thing. You got to take care of that. Okay? Be that resource. You have aunts, uncles, grandparents. I like those people. If you got somebody you can trust, we have circumstances with our kids over time, and some of our aunts, some of the uncles are really good. I have a friend that's really good. He's a psychologist guy. Like, go talk to him. Those things are going to happen. Use your teachers, counselors, coaches. When Jack was playing high school golf, he was captain. He was number 1 on the team. He was freaky good early. He was one of the twins. And for some reason, his junior year, he just, I don't know, they gave him captain, and he was just out of sorts. You just see it and go, aren't you happy to be captain? He kind of closed in. And so I talked to the coach, who was a really nice guy. He wasn't a golf coach, he was a football guy, but he really liked Jack. And I said, hey, obviously, I can see what's going on here. He goes, yeah, I just feel sorry, I don't know what to do. I said, well, I mean, if you ever get a chance to pull him aside, just talk to him about what's going on. And I think in that, like, what you discover is he said, like, I'm really anxious. Like, I'm just out on the court. He looks really relaxed. Like, he's great in golf. He was just stressing out for 5-hour matches. And he felt so much pressure to do well. And at some point, he didn't even want anybody to talk to him. So, you know, the coach kind of had a way in there. So use those people. And, you know, at least 2 or 3 of my kids, I've said, go talk to Father Peter. He's just a good guy. I'm probably not going to tell him everything in confession. Tell him most things. Do you ever lie in confession? That doesn't feel good. I pulled off. I'm not telling him that. Father Peter, you can go talk to him. Molly talked to him before she went on to med school because she was just really struggling with, like, the pressure of it. And he said, hey, Molly, be gentle with yourself. You're not a machine. Be gentle. The best, she still refers to that this day when she's having a stressful day. So use these things, use people. Religious ed programs are a place to get help. Your kids have people there caring for them. Beep. Oh, it's so true. Kids only ask why, because you didn't give them what they want. Can I have a sleepover? Yeah. Why? Never. Not one time. Hey, can I be on the computer for another hour? Yes. Why? Not one time. Never once. They only ask why to work you. The second part's true. If you keep talking after you made a decision as a parent, you are driving your kid crazy and causing chaos. Give the answer, and moms, stop caring so much. Just stop talking. It's okay. They're going to be okay. Just say no. And then, like, go talk to your dad. Don't look at me anymore. And dads, get in there. Don't let them keep talking. Don't let them do that to her. There's a PowerPoint coming up. Beep. Here's where they are now. Number 1 is ERPA. She did her training in Chicago. She sees a bajillion people a day. She works like a firstborn. She's always on the line. I think her husband's feeling that a little bit. Like, can she relax? The guy with the beard, David, he's the wild man. He's the quiet man now. IT engineer for Oracle. He hasn't been to work in like 4 years because IT engineers just get on their screens. He loved the pandemic. It's like, no problem for me. And then, where's Carly? She's dipping her head in there on the right side. She is married, has a child coming, and switched from pediatric bone marrow to adult oncology just to get her schedule so she could be with the kids. She was just having a hard time being with kids that were so sick. for 5 or 6 years. And then Molly's finishing up in psychiatry and will choose her residency. And then Maddie, I said, she's got a guy, and she's finishing grad school. They had a recent passing of his brother, who was a young adult, speaking of mental health stressors. And then Sam and Jack. Jack is in Chicago in supply chain. And Jack came to us maybe 3 years ago and started to talk to us about some sexuality issues. And then he asked his identical brother, are you having any issues? And his brother said, no. And so that was a complicated thing for us. It's a hard thing for him, coming up in the family and kind of having expectations. All of your kids, everybody in this room, has a sexuality, has a sense of it, and it's not always easy for people. Sam is in New York at a corporate law firm and figuring out that he really probably isn't going to stay in that as much as he dreamed to be there. So, beep. Okay, this is the truth. Why do kids say mom, mom, mom? Because moms say what? That's it. I can't help you anymore, Mom. Do not say what? Say, knock it off. Dads, why do they never say dad? Well, because, hey, dad doesn't hear it the first 3 times. Then dad says, knock it off. And then he says, go ask your mom. Like, what's wrong with this picture? As much as men are irritating and annoying and dysfunctional, we're brilliant in some areas. It's horrible. My wife's got like 7 electronic umbilical cords coming at her, and I'm just like, you got to let them go at some point. Last beep, I think. I want to hear questions. If you guys have any time left. Anybody who needs to leave by all means. But if you have questions, anything that you want to know, I'll share. You have a question? You don't? Okay. Anybody have anything they want to know something about?
Troy's got a mic, I think.
You just talked about one of your
Thanks, Troy.
son's sexuality.
Yeah.
You talked earlier about transgender.
You can talk into mine. Yeah.
You talked about the transgender things among teenagers.
Yeah, the fluidity of it all.
And you look at someone who's going to go through a sex change as a teenager,
Yeah.
that is still not physically mature, mentally or emotionally mature.
Yeah.
A life-altering decision like that.
Yes.
How do you deal with a situation like that?
Because it seems to be much more common that we're hearing
Well,
about that.
so, like, I really think a couple things. One is, I believe, in general terms, when you're starting to move into permanent decisions with something that could be a temporary feeling, a thought, something that you're exploring. If I think of myself when I was 15, 16, 14, it's like, yeah, that's a really good idea. That perm looked really good, you know. You do something permanent, and I think that has just caution attached to it. If you're a parent, I think if a son or a daughter approaches you with that, I mean, you have to breathe, right? I don't want to approach that with shock and shame. I want to be able to say, thank you for talking about this with me. And then that whole process is attached to counseling, evaluation, and assessment. I think sometimes the people that are doing it aren't maintaining objectivity, quite honestly. They have some preferences. I think as much as you can approach that and ask for support and assistance, you have to know then when that is coming out and being stated, like this is what I am, this is what I believe and feel, sometimes that decision for them is done. And so they're not there to discuss it as much as you might think. They're here to inform. And sometimes if you don't respond in a way that seems favorable or supportive, a severing occurs. And I see that as one of the most damaging responses in society. I don't think Jesus would say sever. I think Jesus, Father Peter, why I reference him for my kids, on Monday, as the pandemic kicked in and they shut things down, I was up at St. Ambrose because I consult there. And I happened to be with him in the office and a couple other admin people. And everybody was like freaky nervous about the pandemic. And I said, Father Peter, what do you think Jesus would say about this? And he said, brother, bring it in. And he came over and gave just a big hug. And I think that's an answer to some of this. Like, start there with joining. And to me, it's not a thing to fight over as much as we have to understand and kind of work through this. And don't panic about it. Other questions? That's a good question.
So we can still do some questions, but real quick, the kids are going to share a little bit about what they did so they can kind of wrap up their segment.
Oh, I love this.
We started to learn about First Communion. We made yummy bread.
Do you have any to share?
They eat it all.
Yeah. Anybody else have any? Oh, we have more.
We learned about vegetables. We learned about fruits. We learned about with exercise and water and grains and sleep.
I serve God when I choose to be healthy.
Other adults have questions now?
Anybody have anything they want to share, ask, say? It's not a pressure thing. It's if you're curious or have a question like that or something else.
There's a lot of diversity in our society at this time, and I guess how do we understand appropriate diversity versus not appropriate diversity, or are there micro environments where this is how our society works, this is how your society works, or just that diversity and inclusion or whatever?
Obviously, this is maybe something that's kind of landed squarely in our family in the last few years. It has also involved some other cousins in different areas. People imagine different things about the gay community and what that means. And I think what I've learned talking with my son Jack over the year, because he went out to Chicago, because, I think one of the best pieces of advice he got was, you're not going to be able to stay where you are. You're just going to feel like you can't open up and just be and figure yourself out. So he went there, and what Jack said was one of the most painful things was, I started to know at around age 8. Kathy and I had sensations and tried to open up conversations, but that doesn't always lead to conversations. But what he has said is, Dad, I'd always imagined myself getting married and having a family. And he said, that is just eating away at me. And he said, I've moved out here, and despite what people might think about coming out or being accepted, I don't have a natural kinship with most of the population within the gay community here. Because he's kind of, quite frankly, he's kind of prejudiced. He's conservative, and he doesn't kind of move into the political manifestations of sexuality. He kind of stays away from that. And so that's been a thing for him to kind of figure out. And so, like, he at times feels very isolated, but it's from the community he's joined in Chicago. It's not from his family. So I think when you think about diversity, diversity occurs, right? It doesn't have to be created. People are diverse by different characteristics that they have. For us, we push forward. It's not about your sexuality. It's about your personality. It's about, are you a kind person? Are you here to help others? That's what it's about. So if I get lost in what the gay community and different people might think, or a religious community, for me, I have a God source, and I think people come to God through all different routes. And that's, to me, what diversity is being open to talking about things. It doesn't mean that you agree with something. So, I know that the issue of gay marriage is going to come up at some point in my life. And it's like, Kathy and I are like, look at each other like, we're in a pickle here. What are we going to do? And we're like, well, we're going to be supportive people. That doesn't mean I'm going to agree with every decision that you make, but I don't agree with all the decisions my heterosexual kids make. I don't agree with half the decisions I make, quite frankly. So diversity to me is to be able to talk and accept some of that, and just don't close the door hard on things. Listening doesn't mean you agree. Stating your opinion sharply doesn't mean that you're changing a person or influencing. It's okay to absorb and reflect on things. So, other questions about mental health stuff, family stuff? You've been held captive very long. You're very patient. Thank you very much for coming and listening. I'm going to stick around here.
Just one quick note. Yvonne, do you want to do a plug for Cana Dinner quick?
So our churches pretty much every year for, not quite 20 years, have had a Cana dinner. It'll be the first one in this space, which will be fun. So all engaged or married couples are welcome to come. That will be February 8th. It's a Saturday right after Mass. Cost is $35 a couple, pretty cheap. And we'll have dinner and a little program and just community with other married couples. So sign up would be in the bulletin, online. I think he's got it on the scroll, right? So there we go, Eli. Thank you.
So Jim Richardson, thank you for packing a lunch and stopping twice on the way here from Woodbury to come all the way to Ramsey and visit with us tonight. You're always entertaining, and there's always a few nuggets to chew on. Jim's helped our family a million times through some sticky stuff, so we're always grateful to see you here. So I just had one quick announcement about town hall meeting this weekend. You probably saw it in the bulletin or the weekly email, but after masses on Saturday and Sunday, it shouldn't be too long. We'd like to say half hour, 45 minutes or something right in here, just to go over some of the basic, all the stuff that's been happening. We have someone from finance, someone from parish council, somebody from the building committee, someone from strategic planning, someone from development committee. So just put that on your calendar and plan on getting coffee and donuts and then coming back in here and listen to what we have to say. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. Troy, are we good? All right. Have a great night. Drive safe. Watch for deer.